for illumined life to be birthed into form. I am the truth. I am the light. Illumined, beloved divine.
So hello there everyone, and welcome to this video with me here today. It's Friday, Venus Day, and today is the first day that I'm actually recording outside in front of our own lawn, in front of our own landscape, our own land, and it brings me great pleasure to do so. We're still very busy, have lots of things to do here around the house, within, without. The heat is still going on, and it's lots of fatigue as well as exhaustion. You know, I'm getting very lazy these days, just slowing down. And today is actually the first day that I had a yin yoga session, which I used to do before, what I call tantrica yoga. And it was quite an experience to have that following after such a year of turbulence and not being able to anchor myself properly. And it was such a feeling of return, this return to the body, because Spirit has been sharing to me about how the body and the heart actually need to be within the same resonance. So today we're actually going to talk about love, pure love, profound love, true love, divine love, ultimate love, illumined beloved love, all these terms that I use many times. If you know me, you know that's my work, Ascension through Illumined Beloved, cultivation and path of embodiment, through my illumined counterpart and High Council of Light as well. As we walk the toil the earth. So after I did this session, the feeling was very immense, and I wanted to come and speak to you about love and share more messages about how to cultivate, and not just cultivate, but first recognize, learn to recognize when we're not in that state of love and how to move forward. So just a few days ago, we actually were guided to do ceremonial sitting down every day through the cultivation of these mini rituals that we already used to do before. We were holding the space so much so with due diligence, even before we moved out of that place. And then, you know, so much happened, and it was quite a turbulent lifestyle for me. I couldn't quite anchor myself. I couldn't really feel myself and just jump into what is a natural state for me, a very organic state of flow. And I'm still going and growing into it because we still have lots of work here around the house, within, without, but it is slowly moving through. And so through the first ritual, which we actually did the next day after we had a very much difficult day, a day of despair, you know, that heavy feeling when the matrix kicks in and you're really feeling heavy and all you want to do is just break away and go home and not be here at all. So there's an interesting thing that actually came the next day, which was this channeling that I did through a prayer, because we were guided to do these prayers through the cultivation of what the Spirit of God already showed me. This humbling down of the self through love. And then each time I do a prayer, I actually start in a very powerful, feisty way, channeling the voice of Spirit, the presence of my family, of the illumined beings, of course myself. And it feels very much passionate whenever I do so. So the guidance was very simple and profound. And it's always the same, which is Spirit precedes matter. Spirit before matter. So every time you find yourself in a situation where you think you have so much to do, and you're saying, well, I don't have time for this, it's not a period in my life where I can focus on this. You know, people use all these excuses. And it was very simple, just dedicate each day to sit in silence, to breathe, to do cultivation in the body, at least for a little while. You know, even when you have errands, you know, go to bed early or do something when you can do that, to prolong the extended nature of anchoring that into the body, the physical template of union. And the next thing is to do the ceremony together with the group, together with the spirit of creation, in sitting down in this anchored space. And then the third level is to just trust, you know, to trust the unfolding. So during that channeling, God actually said through me, you know, when you're an immaculate one, when you are in the space of this will of God, every time you use a word of power, you're actually speaking the words of God. So you're making divine will manifest through you, because your will is actually one with divine will. But that isn't so until you're fully submerged into divine love. So here's the thing. the Immaculate Ones, we are beings who possess a great amount of love. So this is something I want to talk about today. This great amount of love, in terms of reality of spirit, is probably from the perspective of Earth and our human counterparts something different. It's different to be in the space of divine love, this higher love, which is also very much principle-based. It's very integral. It's very sovereign. It's love based on respect. So all higher beings, first and foremost, they need to have very high reverence for each other and a high amount of respect. This is what makes them open up to one another, and let's say varieties of the way they come together through different approaches, because union exists on all levels, right? Even between groups of different beings, even beings within different templates of consciousness. So on Earth, what the project of Illumined Union Mission was about was to bring the seed of that kind of love. And if it can exist in one human, it can start supersede itself, it can start making its way through the hearts of many. And that's why for me, they always call me the beloved of this Illumined Union path. So the one who's paving the way forward. What is difficult, or how it was difficult in my life, was to encounter situations, people, and templates of love that was still conditional, very ego-based, of course, based on separation, patterns such as defensiveness, lack of self-awareness, but not just that, even being self-conscious, for example. We don't have enough self-confidence, and not being deserving, things like that. And so we meet these aspects within others. So for me, it was a very foreign energy when I walked this earth. I was very feisty in the way I felt, and the way I experienced love, and the way I cultivated it. But it was difficult to encounter people who still had so many of these earthly memories, record memories, because as you know, everything is stored in the DNA. So when you start waking up the body, as I explained, through tantric breathing and yoga and all this cultivation that's more feminine, but we now, as you know, we made even yoga very masculine, very much focused on pushing through. That's a very rigid response to the body, which basically just locks the body more in. It like contracts more than it expands and opens up. So this yin yoga approach is the feminine, or the empress approach to life, which is the feminine aspect of creation that we're just starting to open up to more and more, which allows the body room to generate itself what it wants from you. And mostly when you really are in communication with your body, it wants lots of stillness and easy movement, not so much of this heavy movement. We still have a pattern that, let's say you have a bad day, you're angry or upset, and you're saying, I'm going for a run, I need to steam it off. But it's just a temporary putting it on hold. It's like a temporary situation in which you don't really deal with the issues. You're just steaming it off. But the energy is still venting, and it has to vent out somewhere. So these are still old approaches, right? So the reason why I'm mentioning this is because Spirit said today the body and the heart are so aligned. And the reason why so many people can't experience this higher love, this profound love, this truer love, not just these patterns, these unconscious patterns that are familiar, which means family-based, indoctrinated through the system, societal, but especially very much DNA, inherent patterns that we, through an ancestral lineage, we inherit, and we just drag upon, and we take them forward into what is supposedly our new future, but it doesn't really seem that way because we're not embodying it due to all these obstacles and self-created sabotages, right? So because we can't open up the bodies to being more feminine, we're using the reserves of energy that, as we know, they're depleting the body, so we're aging, and we're getting more and more contracted instead of being more open, right? And continuously opening up to the feminine wisdom and body language of that cultivation of life force. So when the body is being freed of that contraction-based state, it naturally starts to resolve fears. So you have many people now going to these sessions, working on their unconscious patterns, very mentally as well, like doing analytical work through, let's say, analyzing their charts or charts of others, which is still so much scratching the surface, because the real work takes place in the body when you're actually unlocking the codes. I'll tell you one thing, when I had transgression being done to me those 10 years or over so, what actually unlocked these things was when I started doing these tantric self-cultivated yoga practice from 2016 onwards, which is, remember, when I actually developed the Tantrika Yoga video course. Yeah, I can't remember the title. It's so long back though. And at that point, you know, the consciousness within my body slowly started to really rise and rise, because there was so much control placed within my body through these injections, right? These transgressions, which anchor and channel energy that's very dark, that's very domineering, and it's basically adherent to the way it acts through our bodies, through this impulsive, fear-based, like lashing out and being always on the defense. So these things are based on power, not love. So when we do these practices, we're actually softening the body, opening the body. And when I was doing lots of these practices, these things just started opening up these channels. And I started doing the pulsar. That was the advanced level of my yoga, because yoga is not just physical exercise, but where it led me was in this whole galactic level, where I started doing the pulsar, which later then I no longer could and tap into, because there was such a huge amount of transgression energy that I had to face, confront in my body, and gradually release, because it was so intense, so magnified in the body that just couldn't go out all at once, because it would literally kill me. It would kill the body, because that's how intense it was. And because the way these forces work, they have a high advanced knowledge, and they're able to transfer their energetic like codes, right, these templates, right to the level of what we call the bone marrow. And it's very hard to drag them out. That's what my family of light showed to me. So anyway, all these things were not just to keep us in control, to keep us in this rigid state, so when we can't remember who we truly are, that we're basically galactic beings, that we're co-creator beings, that we have the potential to be co-creator gods and goddesses, many divine intelligences, like light beings, that I am one of them, and I come from this type of consciousness. And my embodiment was, in a way, an experiment of breaking through the transgression, which was a mission we completed, but I'm still, you know, as you know, dragging these energies out of my body. And when the body does so, it has and experiences still a lot of pain. So the main reason why these transgressions occur is to keep us away from this natural tantric state of being. We're not just many gods and goddesses, but the way we co-create is through these tantric unions. These are the most powerful ways of creating. So starting to gradually move back to this natural state of being and existence, which is this tantric self, born lover of life and the giver of life, it means we don't just have to go through all the patterns and the ancestral thing. You know, some of us have done this work really fast, and when this was done, we went deeper galactic levels, which uncovered, when I did this work, lots of galactically based, you know, beings related transgression in the body. So it's like you're mining your own body for intelligences that are not just of the light, also of the dark, and in that way you're cultivating union. What that happens is, because there's so much of this cloaking of what is the primordial design of life, or the Elohim imprint of life, which is the birth of life through the birth of spark of creation, which is the feminine principle of life, which is the creatrix. Hence, in opposition, we have the matrix, which is matriarchal, right? In a way that's distorted. Then it becomes a distorted patriarchy as well, because the masculine and feminine principles are interrelated. So distort one, you have both distorted, as you know. And that's what happened. So in a way, the darkness knows and understands the power of divine union and the coupling formation that we build first within ourselves, and then with these divine partners that we're able to tune into and find, like through this soul-matched resonance frequency. That's why you have a natural pull towards someone and maybe an aversion to someone else. You might even be in a relationship with that being, and it's what you perceive a familiar residency in a way. It's a familiar space to be in. It feels very comfortable, but it doesn't have that pull. It's not a magnetic union. So these magnetic unions are what I explain, what the dark transgression wanted to hijack. And in my case, in my example, it did hijack my beloved and my beloved experience and the way I feel it, the way I cultivate it. And in this last winter, which for me was the worst winter ever, and already experienced very harsh winters living in the mountains those 7 and now 8 years, and in continuation. And so it was the darkest of the dark. And at one point, when I was doing lots of the pulsar work again, trying to recalibrate my body back into the light from all these distorted imprints, what happened, you know, I saw this vision of the beloved collapsing behind what was perceived as this plexiglass. It was a very scary vision for me. It was almost like the beloved died and the masculine aspect fell down. And since then, I remember feeling almost like lifeless, like I want to die, and I just want to leave the planet, because there was so much sadness and depression within me that I had to then unlock and understand why. Because these dark forces, in a way, they didn't just hijack me and my body, my own tantric union, but also the union with my beloved. And it was a very heavy thing. And so today I want to start up with this, talking about true love, because true love is so sacrificial, it's so devotional, because it starts with God, it starts with prime spark, it starts with prime light. You can't really, and you don't really love either yourself or another if your love does not come from God, if your love does not come with the union of source, because that's ultimately what we're serving. And remembering that divinehood within us, it's what instantly connects us back. We don't have to do a lot of work like it's shown to us in the New Age communities, because people are actually making money of that. All it takes is for us to recognize the truth, awaken to the truth, and try to find our way back to that core design and principle of life. So I realize now, just a few days, I had to re-experience this death of the beloved that they showed me, and I cried a lot. And it's almost like I had to mourn this. And the moment I was mourning it, they were showing me that actually when you are a light being, you work with the darkness in a way that you have to accept even the worst of the worst, what the darkness does, because that's how you bring the light in. So in mourning the beloved, and it was very sad that day, and I even said to myself, I need to do this ritual because this person died. And I'm never going to meet them, and I'm never going to see them ever in the physical. And it was this sad, longing feeling. This sadness, that is something that was mourning for months and years anyway, because it was something I was holding space for so long. That was the summer of 2019 when I really felt the presence. And I remember this summer, I was just outside sleeping in nature. And I wanted to just be there, beyond all the interruptions, and just feel the presence of the beloved and just be with that being. And it was so intense. And right afterwards, you know what happened, right? The transgression happened around the time of my birthday in September. And it was a very, very long way back, and it's still a way back. And in the previous video for the solstice, I explained why this tantric love, this union love, is so important. But then I got this channeling from my mission team, from Spirit, that we always find ways to anchor the union yet again. And they were showing me how at the highest level of union, we tried, but it didn't work because there was still so much obstruction. So then we had to drop the frequency to anchor more into what we call the physical 3D beloved. And they explained this whole process to me, which can be complex. And sometimes I go like, okay, whatever. But it's, in a way, I just want to show you through my own example that true love starts with you serving God, serving the divine plan. And in my case, they told me that I never said no to anything, that I'm such a being, I never say no to any project, to any new trial, attempt, whatever we do. And it's all to bring what even Jesus calls this ancient experiment of love back, And there were so many stories of this separation and these, let's say, union couples who just couldn't be together. There were so many obstructions on this planet, and everyone wondered why this, planet. You can feel so much love as a human, but you never get to fully grasp it and fully live it and embody it. And most people who are in relationships are very status quo based, very materialistically oriented, when, let's say, two people are only out to get their own desires fulfilled. They're serving first each their own needs and then the needs of the couple, but they're not serving the needs as God's. The living manifestations of the divine. And this is something that I always had within me. So it was very much principle in the way that I lived my life, which scared some people off or away. And they were like, what's wrong with this person? It's just the level of commitment that I have and the way I feel this love. And this love never dies within me, even when they show me the beloved died as another being who was a part of the mission. And I don't know, when I did my mourning, I actually felt a new wave of resurgence of those feelings. And I said to myself, as a human, you never fully know what and why. Especially as light beings, they're always like these cover-up scenarios, and, they're not going to tell you the whole thing or the whole truth because you're still playing a game on both sides, for the team. So I understand how things are. what they want from me now is to really stay in the love presence. And today when I woke up, I actually saw an image. Sometimes I have these mini premonitions before waking up. It was a vision of a card, 8 of Wands. If you know in tarot, the shooting arrows, sometimes the card is called the arrows of love. And the card that I saw was actually pink in my mind's eye, which was interesting. And today was Venus Day, Friday. And today we sat down for a session. We did our readings. We do our coffee cup readings on Fridays as well. And it was very beloved, in the way the energy was felt. And then my team channeled through me that there was this mini victory for us that's, it sounds light, but it's also very important, which is getting our Fridays back, which were hijacked. And now Fridays feel good again. It's when we can anchor. And they couldn't explain to me why exactly it has to be Friday, cosmically speaking, but they said it kind of something that for us on earth seems very slight and not as important. From the greater picture, it has a deeper meaning, has a bigger picture that we can see and comprehend at this time. Even myself, even as a light being on a mission, don't think I'm always told everything up front. I'm not. There's a lot of hiding on both sides, light and the dark, because the game has to play itself out. So the difference is that the darkness hides information because it manipulates, and the light hides information for the greater good. So the darkness couldn't hijack it. So that's the only reason. So I'm not always told everything, but I had to embrace the worst scenario, because the message I received was back in the summer. It was this white butterfly I was chasing by the lake. We were by this beautiful lake, and we were talking about the beloved. And then suddenly I see that butterfly flying towards the lake, and a fish ate the butterfly, came out of the water, and the butterfly was gone, submerged, went into the darkness down below. And I've gotten this message, oh my God, something has happened to this person, this being, oh no, and I was so upset for a very long time, because I didn't know what's happening. Was the message right? Because it was so much in the moment. It was such a synchronicity, and I got scared, And I said, anything is possible, because if I barely made it through this transgression, I don't know what happened to the other person. It was a part of the mission. But all I know right now is what they've shown me. They said now we're on a different attempt. They're going about it in a different way, which is using the 3D template. Before it was a much higher frequency of the beloved trying to come together. Now they said we have to go lower. That's what they learned and realized, I believe, what I got from my impression and what they were able to convey to me. And the strategies they're using, I don't always understand, but I'm learning to trust every day more and more that where my love goes or who it goes towards, it's all meaningful and purposeful. That as humans, we don't always have to understand that love, but what we do need to know is these qualities of love. And true love, which is divine love, is not based on fulfillment of your own needs or the needs of the couple, but the needs of God. So today, the beloved, as I call my ethereal twin, my divine counterpart, told me that, even when it comes to orgasms, when you have these outbursts of energy, he said they go in 3 ways. First one has to be for the feminine. The feminine, as you know, represents the body. Even in the very sexual expression, right? The masculine is always drawn to make the feminine be the first recipient. And my beloved showed me that this has a deeper meaning. So the feminine receives, then the both of them receive and conjure up in the sexual union, in this Heroes Gamos experience, this orgasmic bliss together. And then he said the third one is for God. So that's when you channel the energy, right? And bring it forward and cultivate this to create a higher emanation. Basically, you're like bursting out starlight. It's amazing, right? The energy that you can generate, that we can all generate within our bodies. But the problem is that these lower unconscious patterns and self-sabotages and addictions to the old ways that are very familiar, they don't actually block us because there's something or someone in our life that blocks us. It's still all from within. There's never an outside reason, although sometimes we say, well, it's a circumstance in life that makes it so. No, it never is truly so. It is our own lack of true self-value as an aspect of that divine love that went out into creation that now deserves to receive itself as this divine love, as this divine beloved, and to have a life as the divine beloved. Like that butterfly that you can imagine being like this playful child. It just goes from one flower to the next. I'm not talking about polyamory here, I'm talking about this freedom movement, the way you express your spiraling energy. And it's not just for the feminine we're all spirals, right? The feminine and the masculines, once we learn about our tantric self. We have a deeper presence, this tantric presence to us that's always knowing, it's always conscious of our energy emanations and also how they affect the other person. Because in unconscious relationships that are based on codependency and addiction, or maybe even obsession with someone, lust, greed, envy, jealousy, you might think, why do I love someone? I'm attracted to them, but at the same time I'm jealous. That's not really love. That's a pattern. Behind the pattern, there can be love, of course, because behind everything there's always love. But in the way it's being expressed, it's a distortion of true love. And so we need to deal with these patterns to get to the rightful state of our God source universal love that we all come from, and we can learn to live it, not just know that there's a potential of it somewhere out there in the next world. No, right now in this world, the heaven on earth, the heaven within being embodied. And so these blockages in a way prevent us from feeling that love. And because we're still humans, right? We still have a very deep emotional reservoir. We're not always understanding how to express it, especially, let's say, the masculine side of this game of polarity coming into union is more vulnerable in the way it expresses, or has been learned or programmed to express its emotional side. So it's more natural for the masculines to be more in a lusty state instead of genuine true love that's more based on affection and devotion. So for me, as the feminine Christ, my love at its highest expression is devotion. Doesn't mean I don't know and feel into and tap into all the other aspects of love, because they're all there. They all consist of that. But as a human, I also had to learn in my life that this higher love that I know and in my highest aspect is expressed as this Elohim love of life or creation through the coupling of these great divine beings called Aurea and Aurea. This is a divine couple on a very, very high bandwidth frequency. Me as a human here, I am their counterpart, I am their messenger, but I'm also their embodiment as an earthly human child within my body, my physical vessel. But their generation of love moves through me. That's why my love is so pure, unyielding, strong, firm. It's not just emotional love. It's not love when I can gain something from it. It's really unconditional. And sometimes people don't really know what that is. Even if you feel it for them, they won't feel it until they themselves become unconditional. So there's the catch. So you might have someone being unconditional for you, and you long for that love, to feel it, but you can't. You're always going to get it downsized and downgraded because you're some way, somehow, somewhere filtering it through your own experience. So you can't really fully feel it. You might have moments and glimpses, but it's not enough until you do the work. And that's what this work of physical embodiment is so important, because it gets you in the path of connecting your body with your heart. And you might say, well, the heart is in my body, it's all one. Yes, but the body, as this pure vessel of life force, kind of stands on its own. And then you channel the energy towards all the physical centers. And this heart is the seat of the soul through which we can feel ourselves. That's where the love, as this first spark, can be felt. And that's why so many people, even if not being able to feel it before, will feel it sexually, will feel it when their sexual experiences, maybe just for a while, and it's going to be temporal at first, and then they lose the sense of it again, because they haven't really embodied this state yet. And this is why sexual interaction is so important for humans, because in that level, they really know God, right, in that instant. But they need to go through all the stages and levels to learn to bring that higher love and all of its components to physicality. Because if you mistaken that feeling you get, that feeling of unity and connection, and then filter it through all the rubbish that is not really source, that's ego, that's sabotaging God, that's basically denying God, edging God out, remember, ego. And it's just keeping us in the state of lower consciousness and separation. Even if you might do lots of spiritual work and study, but still you feel that, and you get a contraction each time. There's a truth being moved towards you, there's an understanding wanting to come through you, but then you're in denial. You will actually deny God within. Pride will stand against many, many people from experiencing this love at a deeper level. Although they do want it, they do desire it, it's natural, we all do. So when two people, when we talk about this divine union, as I call it, the Heros Gamos union, there's levels of Heros Gamos. So here on earth, it's very physical. It is connected and interlinked with the sexual union. But the sexual union has a totally different charge direction, purpose, than just a normal sexual encounter. That's the difference between a sexual encounter and a sexual union. You yourself, when you're very much attuned to your sexuality, like I was years of doing that tantric yoga, and then the energy just falling through the transgression for a while, right? It was temporary on halt and kind of stop within me. I'm not getting back slowly to that flow by engaging with cultivation again. But when that happens is you're yourself connected, right? You're yourself a tantric being. You need to learn the self-cultivation, because if you might have that first experience through someone, they're going to be your initiator in a way, your awakener. But until you got to that state yourself, you can't be in an equal partnership, let's say, with them. So what's a major hindrance to people to not grasp on that love, to not claim it for themselves as they already are, is, like I said, all these patterns and self-sabotages, because it's almost like this feeling, you know, when the love is true, you're actually afraid of losing it, because if you lose something that's true, then it's painful. If you lose something that's built on false ground anyway, that's illusory, that's, you know, a house of cards that falls, you know, the tower in tarot, then, you know, it's not that painful. So you rather stay in a comfortable and comfortably numb situation. It's almost like a feeling of always living the same day each day, right? It's like eating stale bread, never getting the taste of anything else, right? When you're spiritually evolving through tantric cultivation, each day can bring a magical sensation of something new, energetically and physically. So that's what this is so important, because we're learning about ourselves through our bodies, in the flesh, in the physical experience. So the whole purpose of true love is, of course, to have these dignified values that they originate from our highest aspects or counterparts. Like in my case, Aurea and Aurea, and I have their traits, I have all of their abilities. All of their traits are mine, because I'm born through their consciousness and their extension of light, to their love, of course. And so it's easy and natural for me to feel those, and that's how I know when I'm not in those energies, or when someone is not. So when someone wants to share something with me and it's not coming from true love, it's a lower or lesser energy expression. It doesn't mean that person is a bad person, for example, but it just means they haven't really embodied that yet. They don't know what the true love is. They don't know they can have an even higher expression of exchange with someone when they first learn to interact that way with themselves. So it's quite a journey, right? It's a long journey of knowing this love, but we also need to know when that love is not. So in most cases right now on the planet, there's levels of love, like I say, but most people in these long-term relationships, as we are, generally speaking, they're still with one another due to some sort of familiarity, lots of time even ancestral patternings that kind of, you know, they connect two people together in this cosmic entanglement due to these patterns that are very similarly vibrating within both of them. They're not attracted to each other from the core. So when you start working on yourself, you're going to see actually the difference when you're attracted to someone through your core, the essence of your soul at the essence level, or through patterns, right? That's karmic learning that you have to go through. You're never in a relationship or an experience or with someone unless there's something to learn there. And you know, nowadays a lot of people speak about these karmics and karmic relationships and how they need to end and all that. I do understand, you know, they're not serving the highest purpose, and lots of them are just keeping this round circle, right? Looping. But still, you know, until lessons are learned and integrated, even if there is a breaking apart, there can be a quick reiteration of that, what was the original pattern anyway. If that wasn't learned and pulled out of the DNA string, that is somehow distorted, that's not vibrating with your original encoding. So the work is accepting the triggers. People who don't want to do the work, they only want the love, but they don't want to do the work. They're usually not very well responsive to the triggers. So the reason why now we have so much twin flame content on our web everywhere, it's like you're flooded. All these videos are now coming through, nothing else. I'm like, what's happening? It's almost like there is an explosion of love, but there's also moving through this web of all that's still distorted. And it's not the original desire, because the original desire comes from the soul and it's based on soul longing. The ego desire is the need to have, to possess, to be with, in order to not feel certain feelings and emotional expressions, because you're afraid to feel them. In one case, I saw this lifetime, right, when the masculine was so attached to this beautiful feminine energy, it wanted to keep her for himself. And then the feminine was, he was kind of nurturing her into health. Something happened. I don't want to go deeper, but it was this archetypal expression. And the feminine had her own family and things, and she had to move away. And he couldn't dare to kind of manage that. Like, he couldn't cope, he couldn't handle. So it's in a way, he killed the inner feminine within himself. That was the story I saw, the archetype. In order to not feel that sadness ever again of someone leaving. And it's what you do to the other, right? You do to yourself. I always say that because it's the truth, because we are all one. We come from the same source. Yeah. And it's kind of difficult to recognize when we're not always in the love state. I know in this modern spiritual circles, everyone always speaks about love and love you, but so much of these sentences are spoken unconsciously. I don't just say to people, I love you. I always say with love, because I am doing everything with love, but I don't just say automatically to someone, I love you, unless I really, really feel it's coming from the core of the soul, that it's a genuine expression of that true love. And if I say it, it has to be unconditional. And unconditional means not just loving the potential of what might be and be better and adjust it, but acceptance of what also is now, even if it doesn't change at all. Doesn't mean you have to be with that energy and be in its presence, but you completely allow it to be absorbed within God, because you understand that the higher divine source is this intelligence that deals with everything naturally. You don't have to if it's not your own thing or story or pattern or something, right? So if you have two people who meet for a reason that's higher than just exchanging words, like now it's so modern, everyone is texting one another and no one really knows what they're texting about. They're just randomly sending out messages. And with random communication, which feels like just playful, I'm just being goofy, I'm just being playful, I'm just living in the moment. It's not a lot of taking responsibility. That's also not true love. True love is every piece of information that's exchanged, which is love. Everything we exchange, we're always exchanging love, even if it's not saying I love you and it's passionate, it's romantic, but we're still exchanging love with one another. And the maturity of that expression, it means taking responsibility for every single word, action, or deed, even when the deeds are zero. That's also an activity that's not always the best, no action, just withdrawal and repressing and denying and pushing away. It's still an action. It still requires an assessment, a deep look into your soul and what's really happening here. So that in a way we won't exchange everything automatically and randomly, because then we're just becoming these androids like our phones. It's not a true meaning of the word androgynous. Remember that. And so if our communication within ourselves starts to be more genuine and authentic, which is first through source, and honoring God and being humbled in the presence of God, which is pure love, pure devotion. Being humbled also then through another person and for the other person, which means respect has to be there. Respecting what they're currently living and choosing and the way they want to communicate. So if you can offer something and they tell you, you take it into account. You don't run away and you take it personally. You just say, thank you. Okay, that's you. I respect that. I honor it. Because all higher beings, higher consciousness do. And they have, that's how they dance, their dance of love. And so these are some of the things I wanted to talk about and address. The topic of love is so vast. I could go on and on because it is my truest nature. And I am, in a deeper cultivation of that union with the self, with the beloved, more and more again, more so. But it's also a difficult path, because to sustain that level of integrity within love that's Christed, it's not just human love. I mean, human love has a purpose, but when you're inchristning the love that was just human, based on the already established status quo, and you're developing it through soul alchemy into something much higher, making it divine, that's what it means to have true love. Unconditional, true, devotional, loving. Of self, of God, of the other through the self, through the eyes of God. And it's basics, now in this twin flame community, everyone talks about, the other, who is usually one is more distorted, or one is more the runner and one is more, non-awakened and all these things, right? It always has a very distinct polarity. And yeah, maybe that there's some truth in that. But what ticks me is that all these readings always talk about the divine feminine and the divine masculine. But you have to know something. You're not a divine feminine or a divine masculine if you don't embody the traits of what it means to be a divine being, a divine human being. You know, attributes of our divine self embodied on the human level. But just mentally, I know about this, or figuratively speaking, it's not enough. Because God knows, God sees everything. God is in you. God is in every tree, every plant. It's also in your body. So God within you knows. It knows when you're being faulty or false, not in alignment, not authentic. It knows that you deserve more. It wants to lead you and guide you towards that higher love expression. But not always everyone is ready at the same time. So you have these falling ins, falling outs, and these, you know, what I call this game of polarity playing itself out. But it's usually if one is more responsible, one is more of a spiritual adult, one has walked a greater wisdom of experience because they allowed themselves to experience all of their emotional rainbow spectrum, dark and the light. One has allowed themselves to go through the entire journey, hasn't done like this, and maybe the other hasn't gone as deep or as much, you know, not every soul is as courageous and brave. But it doesn't mean the potential is not there for that awakening. But you also have to know we are not that divine masculine and feminine. If we're still in these, playing out these lower energy expressions of what we call love, but it's basically just hiding behind a mask of undeservedness and then being in this victim mode, like, yeah, that's all that I am. Let's just face it. Accept me as I am. You know, that's all that I can be or offer. You know, that's very stagnant in the way that's being expressed. Because a being who truly is aware of their divinity, they don't just say, yeah, whatever. I just am what I am right now. That's all I can do and offer. It's very ignorant of your divine nature, because your divine nature actually always lures you into more. It wants always more demonstration, more love. Come on, every example, every being you've ever interacted with or encountered was a school of learning how you can demonstrate more love. Have you chosen to respond in the old way or the new way? Have you been the bigger person, or have you been really small and petty in your actions? So there's no judgment here, my beloveds, but what I'm saying is if we truly want to be the illumined beloved, and we want to feel the beauty of the love that is the Christed love, it's like two beautiful beings coming together, being like children. Like each time in the moment, no resentment, no pride, no ego, no clashing of wills, but also the truth. But when both can reach that same resonance of that truth and know that actions speak louder than words, that it is about the demonstration of the divine within us, demonstration of love in the physical, that's something that can open us to that growth. And unless we're ready, you know, it's not going to happen. So we first need to be ready and willing. True love is really something beautiful. You don't necessarily need the other person to validate that experience for you or to open up the possibility of you experiencing true love. For me, I can always feel it because it lives within me as Aurea and Aurea. But there's something about this experiment of Illumined Union that my family of light shows me that it's very important what's happening in the physical right now. So that's something I wanted to talk about. Please just feel the difference between love that is the love of constantly giving birth to more life, new experiences, new growth, non-stagnancy, but constant movement of life force. Two people who can just inspire each other for greatness instead of always living in that sameness. That's how it's supposed to feel. So when you're watching all these videos and they're always saying about this specific person and another specific person and it's never going, maybe it's not these two people, you know, I always say. Maybe that person is like showing you where the learning is still happening. But we get so hung up on something or an idea. God knows who, where, and when, right? All we need to do is cultivate this true love, not just a feeling that's a temporary sensation that feeds the senses, but then it's gone. Because if your experiences of love are fleeting, they're not always there. Let's say you're angry at someone, but then you always return to love. Only then you know your love for that person is true. It always comes back. the love is leaving, and it's less and less of that. You're not feeling validated in that experience or relationship, or you're feeling something intuitively that's not present there. It's not opening you up to divine potential. Then that's what your body is feeling, and it's communicating to you. And maybe the mind doesn't want to accept it because it's holding on to an idea, and that's how most partnerships still are. Because we just get fixed into a routine and we can't see ourselves going and moving beyond that. I'm quite a chameleon. I can change places, locations, especially after last year, moving 7 times. I mean, God, I'm a record breaker probably. But if nothing else, life taught me to be more flexible than I believed myself to be before. And because of that, I know everyone can. And it brings you up to so much more wisdom. And that wisdom will grow and make your love more noble. It will be a noble, royal love that you can offer to yourself, to the other, and to Source. And Source loves us when we are like that. So I want to do a message. I usually do these cards on Patreon, but I said, what the heck? Today actually is a special day. The sun is just going down behind the hills. It's a special day because in our country we celebrate the Day of Independence. So, all energy is energy. It is what it is. So we can translate it into my experience as well. There's been lots of liberation lately. So I will do these cards. One of my favorites, they're Brow to Ledge, magical signs for divination. I'll just pull a few. And those of you who want to see me do beloved Illumined Union readings, look at the first card at the bottom. It's love. And yeah, I'm laughing. I don't know, I'm just laughing. Who doesn't love love? Just for the sake of love. Yeah, when everything you do out of love, not that, when you're calculating, you're being calculative, how to say that, you're being cautious, and you're kind of trying to manipulate reality in a specific way to fit your mold, your standard. That's not love either. That's control. And that's what the darkness wants us. It wants us to be in control. It wants us to feel small and unliberated and idiots, and like little stuck children who can't make a move forward. That's what the darkness does. And, besides all of that, it also keeps mocking us. Like, look at who you are. You didn't deserve that. Who do you think you are? Just stay where you are already. That's all you can get. And, if that fits you where you are right now, fine, if that's what you believe. But, don't believe the darkness, because it will sell you lots of tricks, tomfoolery for nothing. And I always say to people, go pursue the darkness if you want to. See what it will sell for the price of nothing. See what you can get for that price. See its returns to you, the dividends that it will give you for that moment of something lusty or temptuous, or something that gets you off in that moment. It's nothing. It won't get you anything. People who we call them selling their souls to the devil, they're not getting anything in return. They're shown this false image that they do, and they have wealth and richness. But when they come back to the realm of soul, nothing. So it's huge trickstery that's happening on our planet to get us away, to lure us away from love. Even the lightest, brightest of the lights. Jesus also told us one day, even light beings can get entrapped in this earth matrix and forget about the light, luminous prism of life. So yes, it happens. So let's see. I'm talking and I'm shuffling. I hope it works. Let's see what messages we can get today. About love. Or about what we're talking about. Slowing down. I think that's something that, for this particular moment, it wants to remind us that this fast-paced reality we're living now is another hoax, because it gets us away from our bodies, it gets us away from feeling our true feelings, it keeps us in this constant feeling of movement, but there's no actual movement of life force, right? That's the difference. So the Matrix wants us to believe, yeah, but you are moving, look, you are progressing, look, but you're actually serving the Matrix itself. You're bringing the Matrix, the energy. It's like all slavery is built that way. But when you're serving love, love will serve you back. You will be fulfilled. So when you're not living a life of fulfillment, you know that because you're constantly feeling empty, run down, and run out. You're running out on empty. So it's important to slow down and to see where we're actually feeding the energy to the matrix still. Because you can't feel love. And lots of us are occupying ourselves to not feel something. And it's kind of creating this false bubble of being safe. Constantly in the move, constantly in the movement, like a hamster wheel. But it's actually a hamster wheel. It's not a movement of life force. And the next one is remembering. So when we slow down, we remember what's the truth. We are bringing the resonance through divine remembrance back into our body and every cell that's luminously being filled in. I love to sunbathe during the summer. And all the people say, sun is so dangerous. Yeah, right. I need those liquid light codes. So the last one is divine protection. And this is something I've talked about in the previous video, that all beings who become immaculate, who serve love, and by serving love, you serve God. You don't serve your own agendas and what you believe is right? You are entitled to. I'm entitled to this feeling of resentment. Because the other person did this and that, Maybe so, maybe not. But that sense of entitlement is keeping you shrinked. And so the immaculate ones are without these reserves and boundaries. Their boundaries are even so, but through love. They're always protected. And we've talked about this before. So to know that you're truly in love, everything you do will always be protected. But people don't know that. They don't understand divine law yet because they've never actually seen its manifestation because they haven't lived through divine law. So they don't know. So they're afraid to take those baby steps in leaping and trusting. When I say I'm not going to work for 2 months, and then my mind can get like, yeah, but when will I get my money? Then how will I get my constant influx? And then I say, I don't know. God is in charge. I just trust my guidance. I can't do this right now at this point. And that leaping of faith, that knowing that by doing this, I'm withdrawing and slowing down, I'm actually serving love. I'm trusting the abundance is always there because it's a state of consciousness. It's not a gain of something that's constantly coming in. It's already there. That's what abundance is. It's not something when people say I'm manifesting abundance already is. It's just the state of consciousness, whether you live in that alignment or not. That's up to you. But slowing down to remember and know that we are divinely protected when we choose the path of love is something that maybe is still a challenge, that what's coming up today. But I will do, of course, an extended Illumined Union reading. I do every month. In June I didn't, of course, because I moved, and this was the biggest move of my life so far. I never moved into a house before. Lots of work. What was I thinking? Seriously, just shoot me. Okay, just kidding. But anyway, what I'm saying here is everyone right now, we're all under a new challenge. And the challenge is to serve love even more. Like even for me, I've already served love for 7 years in that way. 8. Basically 10, since my awakening in 2010. But it's a constant expansion. Because the moment you think I've arrived, I know what love is now. Oops, wrong, wrong answer. We keep as humans expanding into more love. So whoever hasn't even given love the first chance, the first choice, is not going to even get the first wave hitting them. But then each wave will be stronger. And each chance and risk, because love of source, true love is actually sacrificial love. It's not, I'm not going to, because I'm not going to get anything in return instantly. I'm not getting most of the things directly in return at all. But somehow my life is abundant. God makes sure of it because I know what God is and I trust it. And so we have now responsibility. A lot of karmic situations are getting their retaliation and retribution, which is something I actually recorded the video about already, but it's going to come as the next one. It was a really strong message that came through next time, but there's a lot of this. We're in this period of grace that I told you, slowly ending. I talked about the period of grace a few months ago by the River Canyon, and it's something that now it's almost like we need to step aside. One example is if you're in a toxic situation or relationship, but you keep on lingering there, whether it's something you're just having in communication with someone, you're living with someone, or you're married years and years, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. But if it's something toxic and you keep on staying because you think you're fixing there something and you're bringing something, there's never a change, is because you're not giving it room to change, because God is the only one that can change another person. no other person has that power, authority, or even ability. But usually when we leave, when we retreat, that's when magic happens, because that person, maybe for the first time in their life, through your love, actually doing a work of, demonstration of saying, there's no true love here. I'm leaving. I'm taking a leave of absence now, for now, until the situation is so. That's the only maybe chance of that person changing and having a wake-up call. Because as long as you stay, you're bringing that backup of energy, like the reservoir of energy that maybe themselves are not getting. And they're getting a constant confirmation that whatever they're doing is okay. That they bring more of that, right? So love is also the humility of the way we teach each other through demonstrating our own will of power, of using the power of love for the self. So when you walk away or retreat and take downtime, if something doesn't feel aligned or really trustworthy, whatever it is, it doesn't mean when you take a leave of absence, you're abandoning someone, but actually surrendering them to God and saying, God is in charge here. That's also love. Control is saying, no, but I have this, I'm taking care of this. This is a lot of that is in this twin flame readings, right? What can I do to make them be this and have these feelings for me? Nothing, truly. Just, it's always the same question. What can I do myself to be more in the alignment in the space of love, true love, source love, devoted love, illumined love? So these are the messages. I will do an extended Illumined Union reading. Maybe comes out in July. I don't know. Hopefully, because I'm a month ahead. I'm not ahead. No, I'm behind. I'm not ahead. Well, I'm always ahead in energy, but I'm behind with my work. Yeah, that's the way to put it. So the sun is just about ready to go down. I'm about ready to go down as well. I go down with the sun. And I will talk to you next time whenever something interesting comes up for me to discuss. Until then, just accept yourself as you are, but don't be afraid to move a step forward. Don't just say, I am the way I am. It's very, limitation based. It's like every day we're changing. We think, well, the earth revolves around the sun in the same way. No, it's never in the same position. Not at all. It just feels to be very, like rotation is very cyclical. Once you understand the sparkle of life, that will change instantly within you. So, take care, my beloveds. As always, so much love is in power, and I love you all very much. Take care. Bye for now.